So you talked about there being kind of an improvised quality to all this. And also there seems to be karma as well.
I'm not sure what you mean by improvised.
I don't know, I was watching you.
Okay, fair enough.
Then it just kind of happens. It kind of makes itself up as it goes along.
Well, it's impossible to resolve the way in which it happens. It may or may not be doing that, but no process of it can be found, or can be resolved, or can be analyzed, so that how it works, how it does what it does is inscrutable. And karma is one of the most interesting aspects of all this, of course. What I mean by karma is that there seems to be literally an infinite degree of apparent patterning to events, to the way this presents. And yet, strangely, the patterns are made of unpatterning, so they are not, the patterns are implications, they're not actualities. No pattern can be found or resolved or precisely determined. So it seems as if they're patterning, but when you look, you don't actually find patterns. So again, that also is a very strange phenomenon. Of course, in human normalcy, we're very familiar with acting as if there's patterning and the patterning is actual, and that's what most human orientation consists of almost 100%. And of course, the whole point of yoga is to reverse that, to orient towards what's actually happening, as opposed to orienting towards all of this apparent patterning as if it was a given and objectively true, and so on and so forth. And the implication of this patterning, as well as, of course, the very functioning of reality itself, are all one and the same. And whether or not it's improvised, whether or not it's patterned, whether it's improvised or not is indeterminate. But that there is no patterning is directly discoverable, and that's the powerful point. I mean, the really powerful point of this yoga is to look at apparition, look at your actual experience, and notice the way that it does not actually resolve into any kind of coherence. I mean, it powerfully does. It's not like it sort of vaguely doesn't resolve into coherence, and as if, you're not looking hard enough or something, but it powerfully and discoverably does not resolve into coherence. Because whatever you look at morphs into something else instantly in the first place. And in the second place, whatever you look at has absolutely no final condition or final state. In other words, it's made of elements that deviate entirely from what the pattern seems to be. And those elements are made of elements which deviate entirely from what the pattern seems to be, and so on and so forth, as close as you care to look. And this is directly discoverable. And that's a really powerful investigation. Because if you discover that fact, then that, it verifies that the patterns aren't actual, aren't reliably true, aren't objectively anything in particular. And the implication of that is drastically different than the implication of human normalcy, where everything is just what it is in a sort of a dull, consistent, reliable, objective way. Nothing, no condition like that is discoverable. You can't find it. Empirically, within experience, it cannot be found. All that can be found is this infinite slipperiness that only leads to slipperiness.
You talk about something being, this understanding being discoverable, but isn't actually self-evident. You don't actually need to discover it, you know it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one and the same, but self-evident and discoverable, there's two ways of putting the same thing. It's self-evident if you look. If you don't look, it might not be self-evident, so that's the discoverable part.
You've got to look, but once you look,
yeah, it's obvious.
And there it is.
It's completely obvious. It's self-verifying. It's self-verifyingly that way. It's self-verifying what it is.
So that once you set your mind to looking, the work has been done.
Yeah, that is the work. The work is to look.
It is to look.
Seek and ye shall find.
Yes.
The only difficulty is not looking. If you just sort of credulously settle for the bill of goods you've been sold, that things are a certain way and you're a certain way and everything is a certain way, and you don't ever bother to look and see whether or not that's actually true. I mean, that's which seems to be the condition of human normalcy. Arguably, unfortunately. But it doesn't. But it's not because it's even particularly difficult to see what's actually the case. It's as John says, it's glaringly obvious. It's blatantly obvious. With just a little bit of intelligent, objective investigation as to the way what experience actually is, how it actually presents itself.
What seems to get in the way, though, is some kind of apparent, even though you can't find it, but some apparent organizing principle, or some kind of continuity that seems as if it continues.
True. I mean, there's obviously inconceivable organizing principles at work that I call inherent intelligence. I mean, there's an astounding apparent structural functionality that's just completely obvious. I mean, reality doesn't present as just sort of random snow. It presents as all these incredible structures that seem to have amazing functionality and so on and so forth. But continuity, on the other hand, cannot be found.
It can't be found, but it can't not be there. I mean, it can't be found.
I don't know what it means. What does it mean when you have two knots?
Well,
Can't not be there.
Well, even though you can't find it, it doesn't mean that it's not there.
Well,
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the herd of pink elephants in this room, just because you can't find them doesn't mean they're not there. Sure, I mean but that's just opening the door to fantasy, which is fine. But fantasy is just fantasy. Well, sure. But how far, what does that get you? What I recommend is look and see what you can discover is there. And then see what the implications of that are. Because then you're working empirically, you're working on the basis of, you might say, according to scientific principles, you're working on the basis of observable evidence rather than just a priori theories of how it everyone knows that it is, even if you can't actually find it.
But if that organizing principle is the thing that's looking, then it's like a loop that.
Sure, that's part of the subtlety of it. Absolutely.
So, give an example of looking at something that seems to be continuous but isn't.
Well, I mean, any example. I mean, you pick any experiential, target whatsoever, and at any moment your experience of it you've never had before and you'll never have again, and the next instant is already something else. So where's the continuity? Arguably, there's degrees of continuity because the degree of difference of the way it will seem to look in the next instant, arguably, is less different than some other difference. So like this napkin is going to look more like, in the next instant is going to look more the way it's looking right now than it will perhaps look like, a cockroach that's running by or that lamp or something, but maybe not. But given that doesn't really establish anything. That's just a curious phenomenon. But it doesn't, you can't base anything on that. There are degrees of difference in absolute difference, or let's say degrees of less difference. A minimal, say minimal degrees of difference, or degrees of minimal pathways of minimal difference within a condition of absolute difference. So this is always absolutely different than itself, both in instant and in successive instants, and yet it's arguably more similar to itself in subsequent instances than it is to something else that is more different. So, but again, you have more different and less different, but they exist within a continuum of absolute difference. So it's a peculiar condition. So it's like a pointillist. Imagine a pointillist movie. Okay, there's these flashes of light, and then the flashes of, well, imagine a TV show, which is basically a pointillist movie. Okay, so you could say a TV show. The reason TV is coherent as a medium for conveying dramas and such is this principle of degrees of difference. Even though they're just flashes every instant, even though the flashes are never exactly the same as they were in the previous instant, certain patterns of them are less different than certain other patterns of them, and the mind uses that to interpret, this range of absolutely changing patterns is a person walking across a room, and this range of changing patterns is an object, is a painting on the wall behind them that they're walking in front of, and so on and so forth. All there is dots with zero continuity, but it presents as if there was a kind of a virtual continuity, which is held together by this principle of a lesser degree of difference in a condition that consists of absolute difference. So it's a strange, a mathematician could probably describe this much more precisely, this phenomena. But experientially, it's very obvious, and the lesser degrees of difference is interesting, but it's not particularly powerful. The powerful point is the absolute condition of absolute difference, because that's what completely deconstructs and disproves consensus reality, which is what samsara is made of, which is what bondage is made of in the spiritual sense. And then once you are liberated, then you can amuse yourself all you want with looking at the way that Maya so convincingly generates, using this principle of degrees of difference, generates seeming continuities where there is none.
There was some really cool, there was a little blip on Facebook the other day where somebody, I guess it was Google, had hooked up this software that would recognize faces. And it was showing that when you apply this software to just any scene, like that.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
It just starts,
It starts pre-associating. Yeah,
Wow.
That's exactly.
it's precisely.
Yeah,
Is what we're talking about.
yeah.
I mean, that illustrates the same principle at any rate.
Dear, what's Maya again?
It's a technical term, it's not
Well, I
important at
know,
all.
but this, I'm leading up to that.
Maya-
This new-
Maya is the principle of the way things can seem to be a certain way without actually being that way.
Right.
So everything is radiant presence, and yet it looks as if it's, you know, this crappy world with all these humans running around doing
Right,
that.
well,
That's the thing.
I don't know.
Maya is the way in which that can happen.
Right,
It's a
Yeah.
name, it's a mythological name and a technical term for the way in which that degree of misunderstanding can occur.
so you equate human pattern, human, delusion or Maya as some kind of abnormality or something?
No, not in the least.
It's really part of the inherent.
Absolutely, it's not at all abnormal. It's the nature of what this is, that it does that.
Right.
It's one of its modes. It's one of its
That's how we get simple things.
I mean, it causes a lot of, suffering.
Seemingly,
problems,
yeah.
But,
Yeah,
it's.
yeah. I mean that is the sole problem. The misinterpretation, and particularly the global misinterpretation that a deluded mindset, generates or lives in, is the sole problem from a spiritual point of view. And the sole solution is to see that it doesn't actually exist, which of course solves the problem, because since it doesn't exist, you don't have to solve it or make sense of it. It looks as if it exists, but it isn't actually there.
What do you think is going on with an aspect of that which seems to be identity that seems to have a continuous relationship to every change? Well, I guess the identity changes as well.
Well, maybe yes, maybe no. But identity is basically, or let's say identifying. Identity per se is a special case of identifying. And identifying is exactly what we're talking about, of interpreting that there is a particular condition which actually exists in a certain way as an entity or an object or anything whatsoever that's designatable, where that's not actually the case. And that's not a problem, but that it seems to exist. There's a reason why it seems to exist, because that is a viable interpretation for what does exist. But that happens to be a viable interpretation which is demonstrably inaccurate.
Doesn't necessarily have to be a thing, I mean, it can be
Well, anything designatable, let's say,
that,
a state or a condition or even
energy or-
an energy, anything that's designatable as that is that, whatever kind of degree of thatness there is.
and I guess a focusing on
Well, just holding it to be the case,
to be
which is basically done in imagination or in mentality, if you want. And identity in terms of one's identity and one's nature, self-image and that kind of thing, is just a special case of any identifying the unpatterned as being a particular pattern. So even though it's it can seem to be more central in the case particularly of ego identity and things like that. It's still not a special condition. It's just a general case. It's just a particular case of the general issue. And once you discover the way it really is, and anywhere, it applies across the board. So it applies also to identity. It applies to embodiment. It applies to history. It applies to everything, because any and all condition seem to exist because of the same principle, which is the principle of misidentifying apparent patterning as having coherence or stability or persistence in time or what have you. Which is demonstrably not the case.
So the holding of that in place seems to have a lot of energy holding them.
It can, but the holding in a place is actually pretending to hold it in place, because nothing is actually held in place, because both the thing itself and the condition of holding it are actually in actuality continually morphing and changing. So it's like pretending to hold it. It's pretending to hold it in place, and then every time you look at it, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Oh, yep, there it is, hasn't changed, still there. But you're creating that condition by asserting it.
Well, take like a pain,
Pain?
a physical pain.
Perfect example.
Has a seeming continuity to it, which has a seeming entity associated with it.
Right, all of that can be argued, but if you look at an actual pain, you discover exactly the opposite condition. In fact, it has an absolute dynamism. It has an absolute unresolvability in terms of precisely the way it is what it is. And every aspect of it is similarly open-ended in terms of, well, it kind of seems to be kind of like this and kind of like that, and after a while you don't know what you're looking at. But I grant you, it can seem to have all those things. It can seem to have, and this is exactly what we're talking about, this principle of Maya, or this principle of pretending to hold identifications, pretending that you know what things are and that they aren't changing. But that's a pretense, and that pretense has to be asserted. If you don't assert the pretense, all you have is this, and this doesn't pretend to be anything.
But on some level, pretense is as real as anything else.
Absolutely, it's completely real. It's real pretense, but what is pretending is not real. The pretense,
What is
the
pretending
pretense
doesn't
is
matter.
real.
I mean, it
Yeah.
doesn't pretend to be anything.
Right, but then that's the powerful point.
Pretending is real.
Absolutely, and pretending is not a problem. The problem is when you're pretending when you're not seeing it's pretending. You're assuming but that's what I mean. That's what believing means. It means assuming that what you're pretending is actually objectively true, as opposed to something that you're projecting actively.
Yeah.
And all these aspects are just one thing. I mean, this one issue of the unresolvability, the empirical unresolvability of actuality. And all misinterpretation is based on not recognizing that and assuming things are resolvable to any degree or whatever. As soon as you think you know precisely what anything is, you're off and running. And you're wrong.
It seems to me that the basic, or shall we say, practical truth of unresolvability it's really how you are with that. If you're always trying to resolve it or trying to sort it out, then that's going to be a lot of problems. But if you somehow come to a kind of, shall we say, acceptance or being with that, then the whole thing just becomes, well, no problem at all. It just,
Absolutely.
It's like inherent in the unresolvability is a way of being with it, a way of that it is,
Yeah, absolutely.
that it starts to just dance.
Absolutely, because unresolvability intrinsically is not a problem. It's not an issue.
Far from it.
Yeah, yeah. So you don't need to. So it's like, oh, here you don't. It's never the case. Oh, here's all this unresolvability. What do I do with that? Because you don't need to do anything with it. It's doing itself ongoingly, so it's a complete non-issue. So it's effortless.
Yeah.
And of course, this is the fruit of yoga. This is the nature of liberation. Is the nature of realization. Is coming to see that this is the case, and then you're free of all this struggling with conditions you imagine you have to struggle with because you imagine they're problematic because you imagine they exist, and you imagine you exist in some relationship to them, and then you have this whole nightmare of an insoluble problem. But as opposed to the actual condition, which is just an ongoing free flow, which is doing itself, and no problem exists whatsoever.
I guess for me, it's it's like it's less about seeing something than it is about somehow getting a feel for something.
Sure.
You know, it's a kind of, and I don't know who's getting a feel of what, right? But it's a feel is God, and that.
But, yeah, you come to know it as it is, and again, you can't pin down precisely what the seeing is or the knowing is, but that comes along with not being able to pin anything down precisely. And yet, even though you can't pin down precisely how to do it, it's completely doable because in fact it's already done. It's already objectively the case that this is known to be what it is. And so all of this is added onto that. It's added onto the pre-existing condition of this being what it is, which is never removed and never negated by all of this additional, value added, so to speak, or in this case, delusion added. It's not even that the delusion is pretended to be added. There's never delusion. You have to pretend there's delusion in order for there to be delusion. It's all a big fantasy. It's all a big projection. Which intrinsically is not a problem because the fact that it is a fantasy renders it a moot point. Even if you're caught up in fantasizing all this absurd, horrible condition, who gives a shit because it's a fantasy? As opposed to anything actual that you then need to deal with or solve or work out.
But usually included in those fantasies is someone, me, suffering.
Oh yeah. Well, the fantasy includes all sorts of endless elements that add to its insolubility.
Those two seem to be
and add to its urgency.
Of some sort, yeah.
Well, sure, absolutely.
So, in a way, that just talking about undoing itself, all of that just kind of undoes itself in that here now. The whole question of here or not here, I mean, all of that becomes meaningless.
Exactly, because in the seeing or in the knowing, in the somehow perception of the actuality, all of that is rendered irrelevant without even needing to be. You don't even need to stop doing it. You can be totally addicted to fantasizing, and as soon as you see it's fantasy, who gives a shit? All of a sudden, it's an entertainment as opposed to, a world of a nightmare or a world of pain. I mean, it's exactly analogous to going lucid in a dream. You can be in this horrible nightmare and the monsters are chasing you and you're trying to run, but you're stuck in a quicksand and I mean, just the whole schmear. But all it takes is a one instant of saying, oh, this is just a dream. It's not really happening. And look, it's a projection and the projection may be there or not. But since it's just a projection, all of a sudden, bang, all implication is removed. All importance is removed from the whole thing and it just becomes an entertainment. Becomes, an artful presentation or what have you. And exactly the same thing happens with, with the waking condition. All our issues of personality and our history and all that are non-issues without needing to be removed. I mean, some very heavy-handed yoga approaches try to extricate oneself from all that. You have to go to a cave in the Himalayas and meditate for 30 years and never see another person and stop thinking, and stop breathing and, eat once a month and, by only pure food brought you by virgins. And it's like, okay, cool, you can do all that, but it's not actually necessary. And it sounds like a lot of work to me. You can hang out at home in the comfort of your own home, watching TV and getting pissed off at Facebook, and that it's all just fantasy, and so the sting is gone. The implication of problem is gone.
It always strikes me it's a bit like kids not wanting to walk on the lines between sidewalk and
It's exactly that.
it's just that.
Or child's games.
Yeah.
Oh no, you cheated. I won that. You moved your piece. Yeah. It's because the importance, the investment in it is given it by forgetting that it's a fantasy, forgetting that it's a pretense, and somehow assuming that it really matters. There's something that hinges on the outcome of this thing, and that it really matters to me. And I really want it to be this way and not that way, and it's absurd. It's just not. No condition like that actually exists empirically. It can't be found. And knowing that, seeing that, solves the problem without needing to even stop that mode of approaching it.
It appears as if it continues to arise.
Of course.
Yeah,
Sure.
ensnaring.
Yeah, absolutely. All that can happen. But ensnaring, since ensnaring isn't actually ensnaring, continuing to ensnare is not an issue.
There's nothing actually continuing.
Yeah, there's nothing continuing, there's nothing ensnaring, and there's nothing to ensnare. And that being the case, if ensnaring continues, there's no implication. Oh no, I'm being sucked into Facebook again. It's like, so what? It's fucking Facebook, who gives a shit? Like, hey, hey, dig it, it's fun.
Well, again, so all these questions of volition and undoing have a different quality. They, in a sense, they're no longer like a choice. They're like almost kind of how can I say it? It's like participating in this doing itself. Like,
Sure, of course, it's more of the same. Because even that volition is an assertion. Apparent volition is just this free flow, and participating is this free flow, and not participating is this free flow. Since everything defaults to actuality, then it's basically a moot point. It's a zero-sum game. You're not actually getting anything out of the deal. So you can pretend to have all the volition you want and even grapple with all the volition you want. Gosh, I really want to do such and such, and I'm tormented by it because I don't think I should. It's like, okay, cool. Who cares? Because all of that is just a spin doctoring of something that can look like that can be interpreted as being that. It is utterly and completely not that. It can in fact never be that. Instantaneous patternless radiance can never actually become something. It can never actually become a condition.
But it turns out to be that it's incredibly hard to understand.
You can understand it, but you can't see it.
Well, but people don't understand. I mean,
That's because they don't look.
they don't look,
They don't look because they already think they know what it is. It's like, boy, these wackos, these new age wackos talking, it's like radiant presence, and you guys crazy. This is California. This is America.
It's to give,
Sure, absolutely.
and
They've been misled though. You know, they're not watching this YouTube.
No, they're not.
Or maybe, you know, but they could, maybe, you know. At the present time, the computer thinks 11 people are watching this YouTube. You know, maybe in the flow of events, billions of people will watch this YouTube. And all of a sudden there'll be a universal enlightenment. Or maybe not. But it's a moot point since there's no people.
You know, they don't have to, well, I mean, as all of you know, I've had some real emotional setbacks the last
Well, sure.
months. But, you know, I tried as hard as I could to pretend that I had a real problem. I tried to go insane. I mean, I did all kinds of destructive behaviors.
Yeah.
But once the cat's out of the bag, you can't do it. You
No.
cannot pretend forever.
No,
I
it
mean,
doesn't work.
It's.
I mean, you can have fun trying.
I mean,
but-
that's
but-
why, I mean, yes, I
That's
know,
fine, yeah.
John, that people don't, you know, most people are, you know, don't even know they're pretending or they're acting like it's really real. But everybody at some point or another, you know.
When you find out.
You know, I
You
just-
find out when you go to sleep, you find out when you die.
Sure, but
You find
I
out
don't
when
really
you're,
care about those other people anyway, but in terms of myself, I mean, I tried really, really hard to have a problem and it's just not working.
but you're yogi with who has some track record, you have some
Thank
realization behind you.
Jesus.
And that makes it more and more difficult to bullshit yourself.
Right.
Last night I was talking to a man who's our age, I guess, more or less. And he's been a Buddhist for donkey's years. I can't remember how many.
Lifetime.
And he's a recluse. He spends most of his time on his own. And he's a Buddhist.
Mhm.
And I said, you know, we've got a couple of Buddhist texts here that you might find interesting. He said, I've got 25,000 Buddhist ebooks. And I said,
Oh
well,
my, 25,000?
25,000. And I said, well,
When does he have time to read them?
I didn't go there. I just said, well, so you found in the books what you're looking for? He said, not yet. I said, well, look at our books. He said, no. I do just give ebooks. But I mean, it's just like.
He's optimistic that the next one's gonna do the trick.
But this is a guy who's searching, has been searching for years and years, and hasn't got any further than collecting ebooks. I mean, Jesus Christ.
But that's what most people do, because
Yes,
most
absolutely.
people that are seekers aren't really seekers.
No.
They're using seekers as a way to energize their story and their drama and their soap opera, and it becomes a mode of activity that they can then pour all sorts of effort into and strive and have
And be
setbacks
seen to
and
be
and yeah, and have a position in the world of I'm a seeker. My position in the world is I'm rejecting the world. You know, I'm out there striving for truth. I say, cool, great, and that's all fine. There's nothing wrong with doing that.
No,
But
I mean,
but
like in terms of what I was talking about, you know, what I've been going through. I mean, there's a certain juice to it.
oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
it's fun going insane. I mean, in
Of
a way. I mean,
But this is why people do it. This is why people get all worked up about all this stuff. This is why people get all worked up about holding their guns or getting enraged at the NRA or, you know, voting or getting all impassioned about Trump or all impassioned about, you know, Sanders or all impassioned about this or that because it's juicy. It's a soap opera. It's like, yeah, all right. It's like a football game, right? You get to yell and scream and beat up your neighbor. It's like, what's not to like? It feels really juicy and eventful.
yeah, but it does break down, unfortunately.
Oh, of course it does. But it's reinstatable. The nice thing is it breaks down, you know, the the current events blow over, but then there's always something new looming on the horizon. There's a new ebook, out there, and I'll get it, and then that'll let me down too. But maybe there's another one. Or a new football game, or a new political contest, or a new, a new terrorist group out to, kill everybody, or whatever. I mean, it's just all, the drama never ends. But it's all projection. And the fantasy is that you get something doing that's better than not.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you become a yogi, you discover that you can get something that's actually better than that. But you can't know how good that is. You can't know the point of it and the value of it until you've tasted it. And everyone kind of knows that subliminally, because everyone that knows the joy of release, the joy of going to sleep, the joy of forgetfulness, I mean, that's the whole escapist thing, or junkies and all this stuff. It's all about, God, feels so good just to let go of it all.
Well, I think that everybody, most people anyway, there's a kind of shining through, you could say, glimmers that's sort of there all the time in a way, or very often. And people pick up on this stuff. And I think in a way, as crazy as people get, they're also not crazy in that way because of the very thing we're talking about. They live in, shall we say, this, this.
They live in it, they are this, and they even know it.
Yeah, they do know it.
But it's still delusional.
Yeah.
Well,
which is just a euphemism for they prefer having soap operas.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really a matter, if you criticize people for being delusional, you're really criticizing a lack of taste.
I'm not criticizing people.
No, of course not,
but people, we are delusional by default.
Yeah.
And it actually takes some effort to realize that. You can't stop being delusional, at least I haven't found a way to stop being delusional, but you can realize it.
Well, but realizing it is stopping being delusional. It's not a matter of stopping the mechanism that delusion is, but it's not. But delusions aren't delusions if you don't believe in them.
That's true.
They're just more light show.
Yeah, I still find I get caught up in sometimes.
Yeah, but even the getting caught, I'm sure you're not really too worried about it. I mean, as I know you,
I'm not too worried about it, but sometimes Roman gets worried about it.
It's the belief machine.
Yeah.
The belief machine.
The belief machine.
Yeah, belief is the glue, and belief is made of identifying. Belief is the glue which energizes delusion, which solidifies delusion. And belief is nothing other than identifying. Belief is the idea that you can say, this is that. And that's what it is, and it actually is that objectively. And no such condition as that actually exists. But belief won't acknowledge that. Belief says, oh no, you're wrong. This is that.
But I found that I can actually quite easily be delusional without having any belief.
Yeah, oh yeah. But that's what liberation is. Liberation isn't sanity. It just means that you may or may not be crazy, but you don't believe it. So you're not entrapped.
I get these thoughts going through my head, and they're actual thoughts, and I'm going crazy, or I've got cancer, or the moon is made of cheese, or whatever it is. I don't believe any of them, but the thoughts still go.
Sure, exactly. But at that point, samsara isn't a hell you're stuck in. It's just a place you're visiting. It's like Christ. It's like Christ going down to the underworld. He's just visiting. He's not. There's no danger whatsoever that he's going to be like stuck there or anything.
Well, I've never seen it in terms of Christ.
Well, no, I mean just the imagery.
It seems to me like it's going to the movies.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a show going on.
Yeah.
You just watch it.
There's virtual elements, seeming elements being presented, but they have minimal import because they aren't being energized by belief.
And to continue the theme of going to the movies, when I go to the movies, I go to watch a particular film, but I have no idea what's going to happen in that film.
Yeah.
Just like I have no idea what delusion's coming next. And they keep on coming,
Yeah.
or I get stuck in one, but whatever it is.
But a movie's a good example, because even if you're getting jerked around by a movie, you
still-
know it's a movie.
Yeah.
You never actually think,
Well,
oh my God, this is, this airplane is really dropping a bomb on me. It's like, no, it's a movie about that. And you can still get caught up in that, but there's no belief reifying.
I don't believe.
Yeah. Whereas so-called waking life is exactly the same thing. It's basically a movie.
Yes.
And when you see that it's a movie, then all of a sudden it has as much sting as going to a movie has. You can be jerked around by it, but there's no binding to it. There's no momentum behind it, because you have the certainty that it isn't actually like that. It's not. You aren't actually in it. It has no importance.
Sorry, I'm just going to continue that movie thing. I don't have Scorsese directing my movie.
You have
Kurosawa or something.
You have a brilliant genius.
It tends to be more like, I don't know.
Well, the identity gets shifted to consciousness itself.
Sure, you could say that.
Rather than this seeming identifying principle that is connected somehow.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. You can put it that way.
It's like paradox itself becomes delicious, It has it doesn't. You don't want to resolve it, Not that you could, but it's like eating chocolate, Yum.
No, yeah. Well, it's beauty. Paradox is really beauty. I mean, a fine work of art we find it beautiful and meaningful, not because of what it is, but because of what it isn't. Because you look at it and it asks questions and doesn't answer them. So it's throwing you all this implication of possibility without actually giving you the answer, or giving you the, it's like giving you an elaborate equation, but not giving you what it equals. You look at a Van Gogh and he's so artfully implying so much, but you don't know what it is. It's like, wow, there's so much there. I have no idea what the fuck he's talking about. He's presenting, but it's so juicy.
It's a bit like that Chinese script, I've been looking at that Chinese script. I have no idea what
Yeah,
it
same
is.
thing. But it has a beauty. It's a poignancy. It's a
It
beautiful.
has an amazing beauty.
There's been idea of being sort of stuck, in a script or a movie. It sort of reminds me of my husband went with a friend up and did some mountain climbing up in British Columbia, and they were coming back down, and they got stuck. Well, Mike got stuck in just like this incredible, like a quick. It was mud, but it was like, quicksand.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend Jerry said he's never seen anybody do something like what Mike did. He literally let go. And, there was no resistance. And that was the only way that Jerry was able to, I guess he threw him a rope and pulled him out. But he said it was the most magical thing that he had ever seen, of someone just, not struggling, not doing anything, just was, willed himself almost to sink further and further in it. And that's, that's how Jerry was able to pull him out. But that's sometimes what you have to do. I mean, if you're caught in some kind of a loop or insane delusion or something, that's what you have to do. You just have to, and that's what I've tried to do, is just sort of go as far as I could with it. And actually, I'm not a very evil person, evidently, and I don't have lot of, I couldn't go as far as I really wanted to.
That's okay. It's early days yet.
What?
Early days yet.
Yeah, early.
There's,
Oh,
there's,
yeah.
there's always hope.
There's always something.
There's the next ebook.
That'll set me off again, I'm sure. One can only hope, right? Yeah. It sort of reminds me of, that one guided meditation you did, and you would say, well, let go. And then a little bit later you said, let go of letting go. It's, a lot of people advise, oh yeah, we just have to let it go. Well, I don't know, that hasn't worked for me, but something, the inherent intelligence, something just comes and hits me.
Yeah.
I just sort of see something.
Anytime you're relating to circumstances, you're giving the circumstance importance. So trying to let go of circumstance, you're actually saying the circumstance is something important that I need to let go of.
Right.
Which is not true.
Right.
So anytime you're relating to circumstances, you're not freeing yourself from them. You're actually re-hooking up to them.
Right.
Whereas seeing solves the problem, whether you let go or not.
Yeah, it's sort of more like opening, not necessarily eyes, but just opening.
Yeah, you look at what's actually going on, and you discover what seemed to be such a problem that you were so caught up in. It just doesn't matter whether or not you're caught up in it, whether or not you solve it, whether or not you let go of it or not.
Right.
It just doesn't matter because it actually doesn't exist as a problem. So you solve every problem, not by solving the problem, but by seeing that it's not a problem. It's just like going lucid in a dream with a nightmare. You don't need to solve the problem of the monster that's chasing you. You just need to see that it's not actually a problem because it's just a dream. And then, oh, the monster chasing me, what a lark. Wonder what's going to happen when he catches me and crunches my head. Like, that'll be fun.
For me, going lucid in a dream is actually removing my mind from the dream. So I'm not interpreting the dream anymore. I'm not thinking, oh, well, what's going to happen when the monster catches me? I'm just saying, this is a dream.
Right.
And that's all I'm saying. I mean, for me, I don't come up with an interpretation of my dream, or I don't do any analyzing of it.
Right.
It's just, this is a dream. That's it. And the more you tend to look at your circumstances, like letting go, or whatever it is, to me, it's more of a mental process.
Yeah.
And
you're playing games with you're playing games.
You're playing games. And actually, there's a very comfortable state where you don't play games. And I'm sure mental health practitioners would call it vegging out or something, because it's not a constructive or destructive or anything state. It's just a being.
Well, it's non-invested without needing to be non-engaged. So you can have any degree of engagement you want that's going on, but there's no investment. Any engagement that's happening is not an actual, has no input.
Well, it's like
It's just another energy flavor.
it's like the paradox of presence itself.
Yeah.
And that is, you don't have to do anything with it. It just, that's somehow beautiful. I don't know why, but it's like you're on the other side of something. You're on the other side of need or something.
Well, it puts you on the other side of everything. When you see that presence can't be, is absolutely impervious to any kind of influence, it is it is and does what it is and is doing, to the extent that's anything. It cannot be addressed one way or the other. And yet it contains everything. And everything is its input.
Well, you can't be addressed, but it can be enjoyed.
Well, of course, yeah.
So there's something about.
Well, it is an enjoyment as an
Yeah,
experience, and it's the vehicle of all enjoyment. Because every and anything that can be enjoyed is enjoyable because it's present in present, or because presence is presenting as that. I'm fine.
You guys can just.
I'd like to be warm, but it's actually it's nice in here.
I was thinking about the word radiance today. It's actually, radiancing.
They're saying.
Radiating.
Yeah, but radiance, to me, the word radiance, even though it is couched as a noun, it implies such a intrinsic dynamism that it basically, it definitely, to me, it implies that just as it stands. But I agree with you, absolutely. I mean, that's the whole point of radiance. It indicates that presence or actuality is actual, but it's never plain vanilla. It's always presenting with this infinite barrage of implications, of flavors. Yeah, well, in the way that it is. Yeah. But every and anything is nothing more than that. You know, it's not like, well, there's that and that's the basis for this, that, and the other. There's no this, that, and the other. Everything is just the implication of that. And then if you're lost in imagination, that implication you can be off and running with that, and all of a sudden you can construct all sorts of actualities and realities and lives and realities. But all there are is projections or fantasies of this actuality that is here the way that it is. So you can't actually depart from or build on the radiance. You can't add to it. The most you can do is pretend to. And it intrinsically, because of the nature of the way it is, it intrinsically is the ultimate Rorschach blot. So it's it's fertile ground for projection. Yeah, and of course we see that. But as a Rorschach blot, there's nothing there but the blot. All the projections don't exist. The only thing actually there, the only thing actually present, the only thing actually actual is the blot itself. And the radiance is that.
We were in a very strange situation in Palm Springs the other day, but you were with Irma's two sisters, and over dinner one day, one of the sisters says, "There is no reality. It's all an illusion. And then when I looked at each other, ooh, where does this come from? And her other sister argued very strongly against that idea. She said, that's bullshit. I am here, I know I'm here, this is real. And this other sister actually came up with this very profound, she was based on television programs she'd seen. Whatever it was, she had this understanding that there was no reality. And yet, she had all of the right words, but there was no understanding there. Yeah, you do know that. She intellectually understood it, but from her belly there was an ego that was saying it. I just found it really surprising that she even came out with this stuff. It was just beautiful to watch it in a non-spiritual context, just coming up and being discussed by these two people who had no history in this work.
Well, science is saying that now. I mean,
Well, that's what she told me.
Any intelligent person can, aspects of these sorts of ideas are, one can arrive there, by many routes, and one may find oneself arriving there, but again, the point, of course, is to really see the way in which it's self-verifyingly and objectively so, as opposed to just being a cute idea. Oh, aren't those scientists clever? They think it's all, gravity waves. It's like, ha ha ha. Well, that would be something, wouldn't it? It's just like sci-fi. It's like watching Star Trek or something. It's like fascinating ideas, but it doesn't really hit home if you don't sort of do the math, so to speak, and see for yourself the way it actually is that way.
Well, I mean, from the other side of the coin, from someone who just, oh yeah, there is no reality, it's all a dream, blah, blah, blah. Like Zen masters will just slap, the guy's face.
Exactly, true.
What's that? So.
Of course, and this is the point. There is very much a reality that is precisely the way that it is.
Yeah.
But relative to what most humans think reality is, it's more like nothing than it is like that, right. Even though it's definitely not nothing in any simple sense.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there is. It's just that you can't exactly say what it is.
I keep on coming back to how profound my original discovery was that there is no belief.
There's no what?
Belief.
Well, you saw it. You saw that, and when you see that, that's the linchpin of liberation.
Yes, it is. I mean, and it actually is the solution for everything.
It is. It's exactly that.
How does that relate to discovering the mathematical world that is coherent within itself? That there's a belief that works.
I'm not sure I follow exactly what you're referring to.
Well, there's certain things that happen in mathematics that are the way they are, and
well, but
there's a belief that there's knowing that.
Well, with mathematics, the way mathematics works is by axioms. Mathematical terms are defined to be a certain way, and then the relationships between the way those things are defined to be becomes the structure of the mathematics. And then because of the way intelligence works, these structures and interrelationships can be very useful for interpreting structures and interrelationships in other dimensions. So, for example, you can use the abstract type ideas of mathematics to calculate, the weight, load bearings and bridges and things like that, and so on and so forth. But mathematics itself is defined into existence, whereas radiance is not defined. Radiance is not subject. Radiance is subject to discovery, but not to definition. Mathematics exists because of radiance, and the profound interrelationships of mathematics exist because of the profound intelligence inherent in radiance. But mathematics is not discoverable; it has to be defined into existence, whereas radiance is actually discoverable. I mean, that experience is here is not something that you can define or not define or pretend to, create or not create. It's an absurdity. It is. It's the given. It's the soul given, and it cannot be erased by denying it, and it cannot be, augmented by asserting it. It is what it is objectively, and that can be discovered. Both that it is, and also the way in which it is what it is. So it's a little bit different from mathematics that way, because mathematics you have to define a starting point. Mm. With radiance you don't need to define a starting point.
Maybe the reality of math is the more the creative process of defining
We just don't.
of discovering it or defining. No, that's not defining it or
yeah. Well, mathematics
seeing it.
Mathematics reflects the inherent structures and processes of intelligence, which are inherent in the radiance. So that's subjective.
Yeah.
And mathematics works because it is that, because it is the intelligence which is real, so it works.
Well, I guess I could probably say the same thing for almost any creative thing like poetry.
Absolutely. Anything
Or
whatsoever. Sure. Any functioning on any level, whether it's a mental level like mathematics, or a physical level or a sensory level like dancing or music or building machinery or something, whatever.
Yeah.
All those are meaningful and powerful to the extent they are because of the inherent intelligence, which is the fact that radiance its very nature is to present as functional form.
Right. I mean, even mathematics or dancing, it's still experiential. I mean, it's.
Oh, there's nothing but experience.
Yeah,
there's nothing but experience.
Right.
It's impossible to have anything that you're not experiencing, of course. Because it actually never goes beyond just being radiance. And so we think of it as mathematics or dancing and we differentiate it, but that differentiation is artificial. All it really is radiance, which of course reflects the inherent intelligence, whether it's mathematics or dancing or having a conversation or anything. Should we have a little break?
Yeah, sure.
So we'll be back in 10 minutes or so.
The chat room was very lively tonight.
Anything interesting in there?
No comments from Jeff?
Oh yeah, Jeff is there. Coot.
Well, we're rocking, so there's no reason for them not to be.
Oh yeah, no, they'll just.
What does that thing say?
What they told me, I don't know, it might just say Clear Spring Herbs. No, it says something about, it's something about herbal, it says herbal medicine, I don't know. Teaspoon medicine, I don't know.
It doesn't say my son went to Peking and this is what we call the back.
Right, no, that would be a good one. trying to figure out a way to spotlight that. It has to. I bought a small one, but it wasn't up high enough. When I put it up on top of the TV, it worked.
Put something on the side of the door.
Hmm?
Put the spot on the side of the
I
door.
could do that. Then I have to have a wire. But I guess, you know, I mean, they do have, they also have those strip lights and they're connected by a very small wire. I could even paint it or something.
Put the wire going up the side of the mirror.
Yeah, I could do that.
Would be the least
Especially,
visible.
yeah. Or up the corner over there.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
When you want to put up some fairy lights?
Hmm?
You want to put up some fairy lights?
And
Yeah. Oh, yeah, oh, God. Whatever happened to those lights that you had at,
I think we left them at the hillside.
oh, man, we should get some more of those.
Yeah, we should, definitely should.
I mean,
love
really.
that.
Are those
Oh,
the ones
that's-
that spun around?
Yeah,
Talk about enlightenment and liberation. Those
In a
did the trick
nutshell.
for me, for sure.
We,
That and the last time I went to Fillmore in
we
the
actually
seventies.
deliberately took them with us, but we somehow haven't got them.
Yeah, they're in a box
Do you know where you
somewhere.
got them?
Yeah, we got, well, the first
They're
one.
probably
in
easy,
Hong Kong.
they're probably easy to get on Amazon or
Yeah,
I'm
we
eBay.
should
sure.
get them
They're
on,
like $75.
no, they're down to $25.
They're probably dirt cheap from China, if they work.
Do you by any chance know your password?
Hmm?
Do you by any chance know your password?
Yeah, DINER 7192 comedy. COMEDY. I think it's 7192.
Try 7129.
7129.
Yeah. Well, yeah, right, hold on, look at that. I'll be glad to be no, but I mean, very home. How's your mom?
Very well. In fact, I give her a call right now.
Why didn't it show up?
I'm so glad that these days phones and computers and things remember all the Wi-Fi data and the passwords. Once you get it, only have to get it right once, and then you're gonna get online.
You're gonna drive. I think I'll just take Bart.
Oh, yeah, but from here, sure.
Yeah, no, yeah, from here, it'll be easy. Morgan, give me a ride down. And then, maybe I'll just meet you at the fireside.
Sure.
That breakfast place?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Do you have like the automatic seating or, the,
I think I do.
yeah,
I think we paid a little extra. We got it early in the line, so
yeah.
I can hold your seat.
I'm gonna have a suitcase. I don't like sitting in that very, very front row.
No, me neither.
Okay.
What's the fireside?
It's a little sort of a coffee house place in the Oakland airport. It has good coffee and has excellent croissants.
I may join you.
Oh, yeah, if you're there.
Yeah. Once that's
Yeah, but come early and join us for a croissant.
Yeah.
Excellent croissants if you like croissants. They have a brick oven, a wood fired oven. It's like a kind of a pizza place, but they have good coffee and they'll heat up the croissants in the wood oven and it's heavenly.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Shall we resume?
Or you can do whatever you want. I'll come back.
I don't think I've been recording any audio tonight.
What?
Well, they've been hearing.
Well, no, the audio is going into the video. I can just get it off of that later. I forgot to hit the record button.
This is a new recorder. I mean, it's a Bluetooth or?
No, it's a regular recorder.
Excuse me.
I guess I resumed prematurely.
Hmm? Why? Oh, yeah, because, I think they sort of just bliss out here.
Seeing beliefs isn't necessarily a thinking or an investigative process.
What do you mean by seeing beliefs?
It seems as if that is shown. It's not, it's like you usually don't know what your beliefs are. because they're so embedded that they're.
Well, yeah, I mean, you actually can't see your beliefs because they don't actually exist.
Yeah.
The powerful thing is not to see beliefs. The powerful thing is to see what belief is and the relationship of belief to experience. At which point you see that belief is attempting to pin down something that is actually undefinable. As long as belief seems viable or possible, then beliefs aren't undermined, and then you're free to get caught up in belief as much as you want. But actually beliefs cannot be seen because there would have to be definability for a belief to be discovered. In other words, suppose you believe in something, that something would have to be definable and what you believe in. Looking for what you actually is and definability.
These real.
Right. Well, all of which are just event having to
I believe Jesus.
and but what Jesus refers to when someone